Hi Geekscapists, the Geekscape podfather Jonathan here. In May, we lost one of our own, longtime Geekscapist Christopher Ellis, who was a friend and a part of our geek community from the very beginning. Chris even met his wife Sarah through our podcast, and their 2015 wedding seemed like a giant Geekscape party. Chris's final weeks battling in the hospital shed light on a huge national problem. The COVID pandemic has almost completely depleted our national and local blood banks. These supplies are used by thousands of hospitals to provide life-saving treatments to patients or to buy enough time for loved ones just to say goodbye. So for the next month and beyond, we're going to do it big in Chris's memory and do some good in the process. We're throwing a blood drive. Visit www.aabb.org to find a donation center near you, or visit other blood and platelet donation centers like the Red Cross. And let's make things interesting. For the next month, take a selfie of yourself donating with the hashtag GeekscapeGives and tag your favorite Geekscape podcast. We'll pick some charitable Geekscapists to send prizes to, and the podcast that gets mentioned the most will also get some cool rewards. I should actually cancel the podcast that gets mentioned the least. Can I do that? Whatever. The point is, go out there and donate some blood, tag a selfie of yourself doing it with the hashtag GeekscapeGives, and get others to do the same. We couldn't save our friend Chris, but we can do a whole lot of good in his name. Geekscape forever!
Everybody, and welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week we are discussing 1978's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, as picked by me.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, so let me throw this out there first and foremost.
Is it an apology? Because...
Hear me out. I don't think that this is a good movie. I'm not sitting here to defend it, but what I want to talk about is that I feel like this movie constantly is juggling between being a movie I would like and then immediately being a movie I kind of hate consistently through the movie. So, like, on the positive side of things, right? The scenes with the tomatoes, I still think are really funny and hold up in the sense of, like, they are selling the tomato attacks with such sincerity. But then whenever they're like, here's the wacky team of people that are going to save the world, it just falls to shit every single time that it jumps there.
Twice. Yeah. I laughed twice this entire movie, and I don't think either one had a tomato in it.
Really?
I mean, the one scene implied that there is a tomato, which was the old couple.
That scene's great.
That, and then the end was the only scene where I laughed, and I knew it wasn't that funny, but I guess it was such a bad movie that the one scene was redeeming is when the newscaster is just aggressively interviewing that woman whose husband just went missing, and he's like, are you going to get married again? What are you going to do if you find your husband dead in a ditch somewhere? You better get married soon. You're no spring chicken, you know.
See, so there are a couple things that still make me laugh. I mean, 90% of this movie is ADR bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
The ADR line that always makes me laugh is when the bikers get attacked and the one biker falls on the ground and the tomato rolls up to him, and the ADR line is just like, hey, there's a funky little tomato. There's like, I don't know, it's so weird because, and I was reading a review because I was trying to wrap my head around this because this is like a cult hit. Like, this movie kind of did whatever when it came out and then had like this massive cult following that led to 3 sequels and a cartoon series and like all types of... Yeah.
Why?
I have no clue. I mean, the later sequels are higher budget for sure.
George Clooney in the second one?
George Clooney was in the second one, and Sean Astin, or not Sean Astin, John Aston, Gomez, the original Gomez Adams, is the villain in all the other sequels. He's like the creator of the tomatoes.
Because they can talk in the sequels, right?
Yeah, they. You
Not
know
just
what?
grumbling.
I'm gonna throw this out there. The very opening scene, I still think, is a really funny setup. And I think it's in part because of it's the first time that you hear these tomato noises that are just like, like as it's that really shitty, they just reversed the shot of someone rolling a tomato into the sink and then reversed it so it looks like it's rolling out of the
You know, the worst part about that is that I was like, oh, they had it on a string. That's clever. I'm like, no, they didn't have it on a string at all.
The other big thing about the opening of this movie, I also wrote down the old couple scene because that scene is funny for, again, what I talked about in So Bad It's Good movies. The best elements are like, this is just the best that we can do with what we've been given, and it's like those two people cannot act, so like let's just lean into it and give them like them detailing something horrific happening, but they are so inept as actors that they're just going to monotonely read it while sitting on the couch.
I think it worked well, actually.
Yeah, the helicopter scene though is something that I wrote down, because the helicopter scene, I'm not sure if either of you know the story of that.
I know nothing about this movie.
Okay, so this movie had $100,000 budget. $60,000 went to replacing the helicopter because that crash wasn't supposed to happen.
What?
The scene was that the helicopter was supposed to just land and then they would do a scene. And if you watch the scene, the tail of the helicopter hits the ground before the rest of the helicopter, and then it started to spin out of control. No one got injured, but they quickly had to just improv a scene to explain the helicopter crash as if it was supposed to happen. And I actually think, I wrote down, the ad-lib dialogue of them walking away from the wreckage is better than most of the dialogue in this movie. He's like, a kamikaze tomato flew at our helicopter, and the one guy's like, tomatoes can't fly. He's like, well, they don't eat people either, but they seem to be doing a great job of it.
You know, that's the thing, is like, this movie is painful. Like, I need the listeners to know, like, it is. I am still reeling. My trust issues are back. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with Matt right now because he's been hurting me so much. But yeah, like this movie is just not fun. There's no fun to be had in it. If you like Naked Gun movies more than you like dogs, let's just say, because I'm the inverse. If you hate puppies and you love Naked Gun movies, you might enjoy one watch of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I mean, I like both of those things.
Yeah,
I don't think they're mutually
Naked Gun
exclusive.
movies.
Yeah, this movie wants to be a Naked Gun movie so bad.
It does.
It wants
Very
to be a
important.
Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah.
Like, insanely bad, because, like, Mel Brooks has the shtick where it's like, let's just break out in song a few times, in a movie. And Mel Brooks' songs are fucking catchy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he can make
you
his
say
song
Attack of the Killer
catchy.
Tomatoes isn't catchy, or the song where the guy's talking
I'm
about...
not talking about Attack of the Killer
What was he-
Tomatoes theme song. The one where he was like, I don't know, he made a joke about like sending them to Alabama and then they left because they didn't want to invade Alabama. It was just a dumb song. Like, there was nothing catchy about it.
Yeah, no, all the music in this, it's because it's like a quasi musical. All the music is just
It's
bad.
bad.
It's really bad. And like, that's the thing about. So I don't find the shittiness of this charming. I find it insufferable.
and that's what I think is the problem, is like, I think that if you didn't actually try to lean into the jokes and you just tried to play it serious that a bunch of tomatoes were killing people, this movie would have worked so much better. But it's when it leans into like you said, the musical bits, or like this, that, and the other thing. Like, you can have a few jokes peppered in. Like, there was like one point where they were listening to the radio and an ad on the radio came on.
It was an ad for the radio, then an ad about the ad for the radio, and it was just like, I get it,
Well, no, I wasn't even going to refer to that. It was an advertisement for a beer, and it was Shirts Beer. You're never too drunk to ask for more shirts.
See, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah,
It's
like,
fun
it's
when
like
you
those
tell
are the
somebody
lines that work.
But
Yeah.
even in this movie, like, I didn't find that amusing. You know, like, I find it amusing when you tell me about it.
And Matt, you saw this when you were younger. Like, I never saw this, but I remember you watching this movie.
So I wouldn't say younger. I was in high school by the time I finally saw it. But I used to watch
so when you were younger.
Yeah, true. But yeah, like when I watched the cartoon constantly.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
Like stay tuned, Patreon. We might be watching the first episode of the cartoon for a Patreon episode. I had seen the cartoon, and then I was aware of its existence because of Elvira, because obviously this is the movie that she does the screening of in Elvira before she does the flash dance performance. But it was actually Mr. Finn he got a copy of it at a yard sale. And was like, here, this seems like something you would like. And I actually watched it on Halloween night, and I was like, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, you're like, man, I ruined the best day of the year.
Yeah.
But then I put it on again, and I was like, my stance has always been like, there are elements of this movie that I like, but as a whole, I think it's a very bad movie that's trying really too hard.
It shouldn't have been made. That's the thing. It should have never been made. And this movie seems like they saw the trailer for The Birds and was like, a bunch of birds killing people. How stupid is that? What's next? Tomatoes? You know? Like, there wasn't like, oh, I love Hitchcock. Like, I want to make this like, and I don't even know if it's a direct parody of The Birds. I'm just basing it off the first like
they made a reference. I mean, I think that it's more Jaws than The Birds, but that's just because of the way that the battles go, you know, the attacks.
I do think, and this is the part that I will defend. I think that the parts with the killer tomatoes make me laugh. Like the scene where they show up and there's just tomatoes laying on the ground. They're not even moving and they're just shooting at them with shotguns. Like that's funny. Or like doing like the Jaws scene where everyone's swimming and then out of nowhere, just a bunch of tomatoes start to rise up in the water. Like those shots are really funny shots.
Yeah, but like you can't. This movie pads out 2 minutes of good material with, 90 minutes of shit.
And it's such a short movie, and it feels so fucking long. It's an 80-minute movie that feels like it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it would have been perfect for like Stay Tuned. Like this would have been a great thing in like, the movie Stay Tuned, where it's like, oh, look at these cheesy movies. It should have never been a full movie ever.
So I will say there's one other line, and I've talked about it a few times before, but it is the one scene in this movie that for whatever reason will always make me laugh. And it's when they're doing the big news broadcast about people being terrified of tomatoes. And they say something like, even the mere mention of the word sends people into a panic. And it's just that guy sitting in the library. And he looks to the left, he looks to the right, and then he just goes, tomato. And then everybody, but it's just the way he says tomato and the smile on his face that he's just so pleased with him.
My favorite thing about that is the energy that you came telling that story and Scott looking like he's in a Wes Anderson movie. Like just straight face the entire time.
And the only other line that was written to be funny that still makes me chuckle a little bit is the undercover agent dressed as a tomato being found out when he asks for ketchup. Just so dumb. It's such a dumb movie. But yeah, there's some parts I like. Other fun fact, along with the helicopter, and this is not shocking when you think about it, the fountain scene where the underwater expert just wanders into a fountain and starts scuba diving in there was shot without any permits, guerrilla style. So like the people that are sitting on the fountain that are like, you see them noticeably like jump up confused as they were just like, I don't know, this will be funny. Just we'll sit in this hotel room that's got a great view of the fountain and you just go do your thing. Joke wasn't worth the time.
Yeah, it could be worse. They could have had him walk around with a steak and fake blood in his mouth and go, I'm vampire, stake me. Which is also a Matt pick. So this is why I have trust issues now.
Yeah, I'm bringing the heat.
No, you're bringing the lukewarm. You're bringing the fucking curdled milk.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Scott.
Brian, here's the thing: is like when you agree with me about my vehement hatred of a pick, it's like it's world shattering because you are the most don't rock the boat person I think I've ever met.
I'm not even angry at Matt. I just think we have to get to a point where we're like, we want to entertain, but at what cost?
I don't think that we're at that point. I think we've been at that point for 6 years. You know, like there's a back catalog from before you came along that is equally painful in other ways, and most of them weren't Matt's fault, but you know, he's back on his bullshit, and I just don't. I don't know what we can do to stop this.
Here's the one thing I'll say. This is me defending myself at this point. In my defense, the other person who used to be on this show and is no longer on this show, who used to pick particularly bad movies, if nothing else, I at least come with like a discussion plan into
That's no excuse, man. You're still hurting me. That's like being like, I only smacked the shit out of you because my hand was itchy.
Yeah.
No, but I guess he does have a point, because like I'm just like, we watched Adela times 5, and you guys are like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, do you have any information on the movie? I was like, nope, let's talk about it.
Yeah, but like, the thing about you is like that. I know why you pick bullshit. It's because you're a low effort person. And
that is true.
Matt is a high effort person to a point, but he's just so the other half of the time that it's like the follow through is only there half the time. With you, the follow through is never there, so I don't have to expect it. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is not me criticizing this isn't me criticizing Brian. This is me just saying, like, I know you well enough, but I also know Matt well enough to know that I deserve better from this relationship.
No, I listen, in the sense of who makes the other one hurt less. yeah, you hurt me way less than I hurt you. But I do, when I'm making my picks, it's not sitting there being like, man, Scott and Brian are gonna have a blast with this. I'm like, I don't know, this is pretty fucking dumb. We could have some fun with this. Like, that's usually the thought process.
I think that your thought process is, we can have fun after you make me suffer through it. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, this will be a fun watch. And then we can have fun talking about it.
Nah, that's never as fun. The good news is that I don't like any of the sequels enough to ever want to pick them. So, you know, once we watch that episode of the cartoon series,
the cartoon is going to be fine. Because I grew up on the cartoon. So 2 funny little stories about my childhood and Killer Tomatoes is that I...
Oh, wait, you said this. You were a Killer Tomato for Halloween
I was a Killer Tomato for Halloween one time. It was just me. This is I appreciate parents that don't stifle their children's creativity, because as far as shitty costumes go, because I feel like at a certain point kids need to learn that they're being idiots, because kids are idiots, and you know, like, the world has to teach them. Your parents can't just teach you everything. So I was like, I love the show Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, or whatever it's called, Killer Tomatoes, right? The cartoon. Yeah. So I was like, I love that show. It is so funny and fun. And mind you, I was like 6 or 7. So my thought process was, I want to be a Killer Tomato. How can I be a Killer Tomato? Oh, I'll have Mom buy me a sweatsuit, a red sweatsuit, and we'll put red paint on my hands and face and get some of that red hairspray that you used to get back in the 80s in my hair, and I'll be a Killer Tomato. Went trick-or-treating. I was upset that people didn't know what I was. You know, they were like, what are you? I'm like, I'm a Killer Tomato. And they're like, that's nice, honey. You know, like, it's just, they didn't even have any time for my bullshit. And there are pictures, and I will try and scrounge one up and post it, because it was again, very low effort. I have become a much more high effort person in my adulthood, but that was definitely a Matt Kelly original. As far as the effort level goes, it might have been a Brian Kelly original. That's the one thing. And the second thing is that the thing I don't remember from the cartoon or this movie that kind of fucked me up when I was watching the very first minute is, I was like, oh my God, the theme song's real. Because my dad used to sing that shit to me, just that the first, you know, literally the theme of the title of the movie, with a ridiculous French accent on tomatoes. And I don't know why. I don't know what the thought process was behind that, but I'm sure that if I asked him, he'd be like, I don't know, funny. You know, like, but like, it was really weird to be like, oh, I thought he made that up. Because it's so shitty that it sounds like something a parent would make up. Like those songs
it sounds like the first attempt.
Yeah. No, Brian, you know how like we sing at our dogs, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like some shit that you sing at your dog, or like be like, oh, just taking a walk, gonna look at my garden. Like it's that same. And they wrote an entire thing. They recorded it. They found this guy with this ridiculous vibrato.
Oh, you do originals. That's dope. I do Weird Al when I take my dogs out. Like I'll be like, Kiki body, grab the leash and let's go potty.
That's equally good. Like I'm not saying that mine are better. I'm saying that they're both stupid in different ways.
So one last factoid before we dive into our double features. Since you're talking about the music, we have to mention that the song Puberty Love pops up frequently in this movie. The singer of Puberty Love is Matt Cameron, which that name might be familiar to some listeners. It might not be. He is the original drummer of Soundgarden and current drummer of Pearl Jam. But when he was 8, he got cast to be the voice that sang Puberty Love in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
So you can only go. I mean, I don't give a shit about Pearl Jam, and I don't really think that I ever liked Soundgarden that much. So
I like Soundgarden.
Like congratulations, buddy. Yeah. You definitely can only go up from being in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I don't think anyone from Philly likes Pearl Jam anymore. That's just my hot take.
All right, so double feature. Does this movie wish it was a Naked Gun movie? It certainly does. But what this movie really wishes it was Dr. Strangelove. And one of the reviews that I read pointed something out, and that's when I started to click with Dr. Strangelove, is they're like, this movie could be good. This movie could be good in being like a parody of like a kaiju movie or a disaster movie or what have you, with these tomatoes taking over the world. And it could also be a movie about how inept the U.S. government is that they can't even like stop a bunch of tomatoes from taking over the world. But you have to do them. You have to do all of it with a straight face for any of it to actually like work and land.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Dr. Strangelove does well, is that it like is a film completely making fun of the absurdity of war and making fun of war movies all at once, but doing it as straight face as it can up until the point when a guy rides an H-bomb to a random country while waving his cowboy hat in the air. But
you got to keep in mind, like, though, that was like, Stanley Kubrick, Peter Weller. I mean, there are a lot of big names that are suspiciously absent from Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I know. One of my favorite IMDb trivia notes was, before this movie, almost none of the cast had ever acted in a movie. And after this movie, many of the cast never acted again.
Because they were literally, like, Trauma was like, you're too bad for even a Trauma film. Like, that's how bad they are.
We're good. We're gonna go ahead and pass on this one, please. Scott, what would your double feature with Attack of the Killer Tomatoes be?
Since I know that I'm never watching this movie again, I'm going to pretend that this was my first and last watch that I have to do a double feature with. And so I'm going to do a burner night. I'm going to do a Forget Me Now night, if we can go back to the the Arrested Development joke days. I'm going to do Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and then The Happening, which is also about an impossibly stupid plant attack.
And Brian, your double feature.
I was trying to think of the most appropriate way to say this, but there is none. So,
he's quitting the show.
Anyone gets angry at me, I'm sorry. So you get my apology in advance. But I would pair this with Citizen Toxie, and how they both connect is Black Hitler, and that's it.
Oh, yeah, that is true. They both have that for sure.
Yeah, this is the most trauma non-trauma film ever.
Things that you've watched this week. Ironically, we're recording this the day after 4th of July, America's independence, or as some people call it, Fuck You England Day. I've been having my own Fuck You England Day for the last month because I've been watching all of The Crown. And very often I yell at my TV, "Fuck you, England," while I'm watching
you, Clowny.
I kind of hate watched 3 seasons of The Crown just to get to the Princess Di season, because I was like, everyone was like, the Princess Di season is incredible. And it is. I was led to believe that it was worth taking in those first 3 seasons of like context before diving in, but it's not. If you're curious, just jump right into season 3 of The Crown, Watch how terribly they treated Princess Diana during her time in The Monarch. Season 4, good stuff. Season 1 through 3, Matt Kelly review.
Yeah, that's, hey, as I've said multiple times this episode, the Matt Kelly reviews. Brian, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go. Out of support for my boss, because it's his favorite franchise, I went to see Fast 9. And, I can't remember the last time I belly laughed at a movie that wasn't intentionally funny. It was so ridiculous.
I'm pausing you for 1 second, and this is coming from someone who's only watched maybe 3 movies in that franchise and not in any particular order. I don't think that you can say that they don't know they're being ridiculous. One of the previous movies, there's definitely a scene where The Rock in the distance sees a heist going on. Side note, he had just recently broken his arm in the movie. And he goes, "Daddy's got to go to work," and then he flexes himself out of his cast.
No, I don't. I'm not saying they don't think they're ridiculous. I'm saying there was scenes written for comedy in this movie that got crickets. But when they were driving across a swing bridge, and someone cut the swing bridge, and you just see this Jeep fall with the swing bridge, and then 5 seconds later, you see this Jeep fly from the cliff and land. I got a belly laugh. And just a little spoiler, Ludacris ends up in space in a car that has a rocket motor.
You're selling it to me because I've never watched any of them, but this is like, I just want to go to the most balls to the wall stupid part of the series.
Just literally, I watched 1 and 9. So I watched Point Break with cars and then this. When they became the Avengers, I don't know, but that's what this movie is.
Yeah, so Fast 9, high recommend from Brian, I take it.
Yeah. I mean, my boss makes a lot of money, so he paid for us in the row. Don't give this movie money.
Let someone else pay for you.
But see it when it's free.
All right, Scott.
So when Matt was over visiting recently, we were looking through Shudder, and I was adding stuff to my list. But there was a Shudder original that we watched the first 2 minutes of before I was like, I can't right now with this. It's called Super Deep, or The Super Deep, and it's a Russian. Is made in 2020, so Russian sci-fi horror movie. Very formulaic. I finally watched it this morning, early in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and I should have just gone to sleep, But the reason why I wanted to mention that is because what we were talking about recently about how Shudder, even when Shudder does Shudder originals that suck, I still appreciate that they have the money and they're giving these bad movies a platform. Now, the reason why Super Deep is bad is because it is entirely ADR'd, first of all. It sucks. But it's a Russian movie. I mean, it probably was originally, But the weird thing is that some people are speaking in Russian, and it looks like they made everybody record everything twice. So their English isn't great. You can see with their mouths that their English isn't great. But then they have people that are ADR'd in, so that they have these weird English accents, but the main female character does not. She speaks with an accent, but no one else does. And I'm like, you're in Siberia. What the fuck are you doing? Yeah. But it's like this. It's kind of like The Thing meets Resident Evil. I mean, it's shit that you've seen before, and CGI's not good. But I gotta give Shudder props once again, and I always will, for the fact that they have money to throw at projects like that, make your movie, all right? It might be bad, but I'm still appreciative of the fact that someone let you make your movie. So thank you, Shudder.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was ungrateful for Comedy Central in the 90s, because I hated so many shows, but looking back, it's man, they gave everybody a fucking chance. They gave
maybe too many chances.
Maybe too many, for sure. But they were giving nobody. It's not even oh, this celebrity wants to make a show. A lot of times they were fucking nobodies. Maybe they were writers that you didn't know, but they weren't super well-known people. And it was just yeah, have a shot. See what you can do.
Yeah. On a similar note, talking about things that we appreciate with horror, I saw a Facebook post right before we started recording from Jeff, who pretty much runs Scream Factory. And he was extremely pissed off about something, and I understand why. And I want to do a quick second to say, hey, we all love that there's companies like Scream Factory and Vinegar Syndrome and Diabolique Films and all of these companies out there that are finding these like really hard to get in any format movies and spending all this money and time to like do a film restoration so that they can put it on Blu-ray for a loser like me who really wants it on their shelf. So here's the deal. If you, through some type of insider source, be it like knowing someone who's working on one of those projects, finds out that one of those is getting released, don't be a dick and announce it on a Facebook group before the people who've spent years working on getting that thing put together have a chance to make a formal announcement about it, because it really negates all of the time and energy that they've spent on working with licenses and like doing film restoration for you to just like take the wind out of their sails and make it an internet story before they're ready for the formal announcement.
You're being way nicer about it than I would be. I would be like, listen, you fucking ant, you know?
Like, there's a joke that someone once told me, and it definitely carries over into the horror community too. But the joke was, what is one thing that every person at the comic book shop wants to know?
One more thing than you, right? Yeah, you've definitely told me that.
One more thing than everyone else in the room.
And
it's accurate.
It pisses me off though, because you're right. Like everybody thinks that they have to be a goddamn expert or just put I you're not gonna realize it.
Well, actually,
you suck in your nose and you push your glasses up and you're like, you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. This is also why I don't really Reddit anymore, because so much of it is just that kind of gatekeepy bullshit.
Toxic.
And if there's one thing that we try and I think succeed quite well at on Horror Movie Night, and especially in our Facebook community, is no one's a dick. And
it's a pretty clean, friendly spot.
Yeah, but it's also great because the thing that it's great, that's great, but it also isn't fair to compare us to something like a Vinegar Syndrome or a Scream Factory or any even bigger podcasts.
Because more people know who
and they're
they
also
are.
Making money. We're not doing this for money, so we can pick and choose. Like, you're being a piece of shit. Bye. They're like, well, we can't really become notorious for blocking people from our page for posting spoilers and things like that. So I mean, just let people be experts if that's their job. That'd be nice. Try.
Well, and big shout out to the Horror Movie Night Facebook group, because they also do a really good job of policing themselves versus like the first year or so that we had that page. There definitely was like, messages internally of like, should we delete this post? Should we like block this person? And now we don't even have to have those conversations, because the group either right away starts flagging stuff that they think is too spammy or shitty, or they'll just harass someone until they leave the group.
And I really appreciate when you do that, because I don't want to be that guy. I know that might seem like I want to be that guy, but I don't want to be that guy. So if you can be that guy or gal or they or whatever, if you want to be that person, please be our guest.
Yep. So that was Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, a very bad parody.
Your bad track record is continuing. Maybe you could learn a little something from your baby bro. Just a thought.
We'll be back. Go and visit the website, hmnpodcast.com, for all of our podcast stuff.
I don't know. Everyone has a podcast now.
Well, not really. What is true is that, according to Nielsen statistics, 55% of the U.S. population, that's over 155 million people, have listened to a podcast, and 24% of the population, that's 68 million people, listen to podcasts weekly. And these numbers continue to trend upward.
What's also true is that over 75% of all podcasts fade away after the first few episodes. It could be for a variety of reasons: lack of strong concept, poor production value, people not realizing how much time needs to be dedicated to it, or simply just not knowing how to get the word out about podcasts. That's where WeKnowPodcasting.com comes in.
At WeKnowPodcasting.com, we have a combined 25 years of podcast experience, and we can help you achieve your podcasting goals. Whether you need help starting a new podcast or want to take your currently active podcast to the next level, we got you. From consultations to concept development, from theme music to editing, promotion, animation, graphics, you name it, and we're here to help.
Don't become another failed podcast statistic. Let us guide you and help your show become a success. Check out the website at WeKnowPodcasting.com, and even if you're on the fence, don't hesitate to reach out. We're friendly guys, we're passionate about pods, and we're here to help.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network. You're listening to the Geekscape Network.